Underground stuff. Today's episode is about cloning. What is cloning and how do you do it? Um, Cloning. You have in your computer a C drive. Everyone, if it's a PC anyway, has what's known as a C drive. And that may be the only drive you have in your computer. And on it is the operating system, Windows, Linux, whatever it is, and applications that you have installed, and maybe data of various kinds, documents, photographs, and so on, that may be all on your C drive. Okay, that is, in general, what most people have, just a single hard drive in their computer, and everything is stored on that. I don't do it that way. I have C drive just for programs and operating system, and I have another drive that I designate as D, which just holds data. Okay, but either way, cloning. What is cloning? Unfortunately, with a single drive system computer, if that hard drive were to fail, you would lose everything, including all your programs that you installed and paid for, as well as any data that you had on that drive. Okay, so you need to make a backup of it in some way. Windows 11 or Windows allows you to make what's called an image backup as part of the operating system, and you can do that to make an image backup. However, you can um, use an external USB drive to do that, as long as it's large enough to hold whatever operating system and program and data you have on your internal C drive. Okay. The problem with image backup is it really only restores the operating system. It does not restore the applications that you had installed. Neither does it keep an image of all of your data files. Okay. So the best way to make sure you have always an operational C drive is to do what's known as a cloning operation. Now, Windows does not inherently support a cloning operation. It will allow you to do a disk copy. You can copy your whole C drive to an external drive or another drive, but that will not, you cannot then take that and replace it inside your computer, and it will not boot. A disk copy is not the same as cloning. Okay, so cloning. I recently had a case where I have multiple computers, and the C drive, which only holds programs and operating system data, was older 7200 RPM mechanical drives. And I'm aware that solid state drives have now got cheap enough. Solid state are not mechanical, and they're much, much faster on reading and writing than a mechanical drive is. So I wanted to replace the C drive in my computers that only hold programs and operating system with a solid state drive. Now, how to go about it? In a normal cloning operation, you would need two free SATA adapters in your computer. Uh, uh, well, actually, one would be the C drive you're connected to, but then you have to have a second um, free SAT adapter. Now, in some cases, like in my case, I have a CD-ROM. I still have a CD-ROM in some computers, and I can turn my computer off, pull off the SAT connector, pull off the power connector off of that DVD reader, and connect on the drive that I want to clone my existing C drive to. That's one way to do a cloning. Problem with that is you have to take your computer apart. You have to disconnect the DVD drive, connect on the new um, uh, a mechanical drive or a solid state drive, and then you may have to use Windows to initialize that new drive that you put in, and that will let you do a cloning operation, but Windows doesn't support a cloning operation. It only supports an image backup. And again, you don't get to keep all your applications, nor do your data files. So once you have, that's one way of doing it, is you can use the DVD SAT drive and power adapter to put in a new hard drive of some kind, or a solid state drive. Then you need to buy cloning software. And in my case, I used EAS US cloning software. And the reason I did that is it automatically supports the cloning of a larger drive to a smaller drive. Okay. I have in my system a 1 terabyte C drive. That's the total size. But actually, programs and applications, I have very little user data on that drive. Programs and applications are using 180 gigabytes of space. That's it, out of the 1 terabyte. So with EAS US cloning software, I knew it clearly indicated it could clone a larger drive to a smaller drive. And what I wanted to do was replace that mechanical drive in my computer with a solid state drive. And this is what a solid state drive looks like. And EAS-US would support the cloning of a larger drive to a smaller drive. And all I really needed was at least a smaller drive of 180 gigabytes. And in my case, this is a 500 gigabyte solid state drive. So I hooked up the two drives internally. I started the cloning software, told which one was the source, my C drive, told it which one was the target drive, which was turned out to be a D drive because that's the way the DVD drive had been configured. And I started the cloning operation, and it worked fine. It resized, if you will, what's called partitions on the solid state drive. It did a cloning operation. Okay, once it was all done, I had to shut the computer down. I had to disconnect my solid state drive. I had to reconnect my DVD drive and bring everything up, see everything's good, working fine. Then I had to shut my computer down, take out mechanical hard drive, put in my new solid state drive, and power it up, and everything worked fine. There is another way to do that, and as I had mentioned in an earlier one, there is what's called a SATA to USB adapter that you can buy that allows you to use an SAT drive into your computer via USB port. So rather than having to free up a drive inside the computer, which means opening it up and disconnecting, doing this, I decided that perhaps it would be a better way to do it was to use this adapter, get a solid state drive, and connect using the via USB port, and wouldn't have to take apart and reconnect SAT drives inside the computer. And that's what I did. This is a new solid state drive. I plugged that in. I brought up my cloning software, and it saw the existing C drive on my computer. It saw the new external via adapter solid state drive, and I did a successful cloning operation. Once that was all done, I powered down the computer. I pulled out the C drive that was in my computer and replaced it with a solid state drive, booted up everything was fine. Okay, that is using EAS US cloning software that will allow you to clone a larger drive to a smaller drive. Okay, all right, well, Ron, thinking that he's smart, I had asked the EAS US cloning people if I could use two USB adapters. And the idea was I installed the EAS US cloning software on one computer. And I'm going to use it to create clones of the C drives from other computers that I own. So the best way to do that would be have both the source drive and the target drive setting off of adapters. So I had two USB to SAT drive adapters. One was I had gone on one of my other computers. I pulled out the C drive. I connected it to one of these, and then I put another adapter in, and I put a brand new solid state drive in it. I brought up the cloning software. It did see that I had two externally connected drives, the original mechanical C drive out of another computer, as well as my new solid state drive. I started a cloning operation, and although EAS US said such a configuration would work, I had difficulty with it. And to not bad mouth EAS US, they said it would work, but in my case, I was limited to USB 2 transfer speeds. I didn't have a USB 3 transfer speed port on the computers that I use. So that may have been a problem, but no matter what I did to try to do a clone of an external adapter drive to a solid state drive external, it would not play. It would clone for hours and still would not complete properly. Um, or if it did, it would come up with error at the end. So in this particular cloning situation, what I learned was that and I want to call it the source drive, needs to be installed in a computer directly to an SATA port inside of the computer, and that you only use one USB adapter and have the destination drive setting on it. If you do it that way, when you bring EAS US cloning software up, it will find obviously the source drive um, inside your computer, and it will see the external solid state drive setting on adapter. Okay. In the case of, I only have EAS US cloning software on one computer. So the only way I can get a free SAT port in my computer, in my case, was turn the computer off, pull off the SATA data drive connector from my DVD, and pull off the power connector from my DVD, and use that to connect on the C drive from another computer that I wanted to clone. Okay. Once I did that configuration, then everything worked fine. I was trying to avoid doing that by using two adapters, but that didn't work right. So cloning. You really need cloning software if you're going to clone from a larger drive to a smaller drive. And I think I've already explained that in my particular case, I had a 1 terabyte 7200 RPM C drive, and I wanted to clone it to a smaller 500 gigabyte solid state drive. And upon examining the 1 terabyte drive, the C drive, I was really only using 181 or 185 gigabytes of it. So knowing EAS US software would allow a larger to smaller, that's why I went with that particular cloning software. And there are many different cloning softwares available that you can buy. Just make sure you have one which will automatically allow you to clone a larger drive to a smaller drive. And also keep in mind that the C drive, if you only keep programs and operating systems on it, it doesn't have to, you're not going to be using much of that drive. Um, C drives, if they're just simply operating system and programs, they're not going to consume a massive amount of space. 500 gigabyte would be more than adequate. If you only have one drive in your computer and it's hosting everything, the operating system, your applications, and all of your data files, documents, images, whatever else, then you might need a much larger uh, destination drive to clone to. It depends on how large your C drive is. Sometimes they could be 5 terabytes, for instance. You could have a single drive in your computer, it's 5 terabytes, because everything is stored on that one drive. I don't never do it that way. I always have a separate D drive for data. Just data is stored over there, not operating system, not programs, just data. But if you only have a single drive, then you have to get an idea of how much of the space on that drive is being used by everything that's on that drive, and buy another drive, be it solid state or mechanical hard drive, at least as large as all of the data and programs and operating system on that drive. That's it for today. This has to do with cloning, and in my particular case, I had one drive that was installed directly in the computer on an SATA port, and my destination drive for the clone was setting on a USB to SATA power adapter. That's it, Uncle Ron and stuff. Today is the 7th of September, 2025.